Hi, I'm Harold Bell, and I am your host for Speak the Truth. First, I would like to introduce you to the team of Speak the Truth. Gary Johnson is the CEO, publisher, and founder of BlackMenInAmerica.com. He is today's facilitator for Speak the Truth. Black Men in America's website is ranked number 5 out of 500 Black websites on the internet. Our political analyst and commentator is Christopher C.J. Johnson. Rounding out the team are a veteran pioneer television broadcaster, producer, actress, and former Sirius XM talk radio host, Miss Maggie Linton. Jackie Jones is a veteran newswoman who has written for the Washington Post, New York Times, and the Baltimore Sun. She was once a producer for my sports talk show, Inside Sports. Presently, she is the Assistant Dean for Programs and Chair of the Department of Multimedia Journalism at Morgan State University in Baltimore. Our supporting team will introduce themselves. Our special guest is a graduate of Loyola University in 1972. His first MBA job was in communications for the Chicago Bulls. He was a vice president of public relations, press relations, and later promoted to the senior vice president of communications for the NBA. From 1981 to 2010, when he was promoted and retired as the senior communications advisor for the NBA in 2014. And adding to his managing public relations activities for every major NBA event from 1980 through 82 through 2010, and the emergence of the WNBA and NBA Development League. He also created numerous NBA awards, including the Defensive Player of the Year, the Sixth Man Award, and the Most Improved Player. He was responsible for initiating White House visits by NBA championship teams, creating a media training program for players, instituting the use of satellite post-game feeds at major NBA events, and a host of other initiatives. In conjunction with USA Basketball, he has been actively involved in public relations planning activities and on-site execution of the men's national team at the 1992, 96, 2000, 2004, and 2000 Olympics. Now, I've read all that to you because this guy has really been, what is happening now, there are 20 plus teams around the league that are now opening up their arenas to voting for citizens. Now, he wasn't a part of that, but that's something he probably would have come up with if he was still, if he was not retired. I would like to introduce my friend, the one and only Brian McIntyre. How you doing, Mr. Mac?
I'm doing, Harold. I'm doing great, Harold. How are you doing?
We're hanging in here. We're hanging in here.
Hey, I got to tell you, I don't think I've ever been prouder to be part of the NBA, even though I'm no longer active. What our players and our coaches and the commissioner have done, I think the bubble, it saved the season, but more importantly, it enabled a lot of people to get together and discuss not just reactions to a lot of events that have been occurring, but trying to come up with some solutions. And led by players like Chris Paul and LeBron and Jaylen Brown and George Hill in Milwaukee, whose idea was to boycott, which led to other teams boycotting, which led to other teams in other leagues to bring even more attention. Donovan Mitchell, who I found out recently is related to you. There's so many players that took the lead on this. And I think being in there, while it was quite a sacrifice for everybody to be away from your family for 3 months, that's a long time. What they could accomplish and together kind of come up to the governors of the NBA teams to say, hey, look, we need to have some action. And everyone came together. I mean, there's a lot of money being committed over the next 10 years. There's foundations that have been set up. There's committees to really put some muscle into it. The coaches have gotten involved. I know people like Rick Carlisle down in Dallas has gotten together with the Dallas Police Department, other authorities down there, working on how we can kind of work together on everything. And it's just really, it's been phenomenal to see.
Yeah, Mr. Matt, give us some insight on the loss and the impact of your friend David Stern.
Well, the guy was a giant. He's one of those guys I never thought would die. I thought he'd be alive and large and in charge forever. He had more energy, more ideas. He was ahead of his time, and he stood up for what he felt was right. He always encouraged everyone in our league office, at least, to stand up and do the right thing. He came up with a lot of great things, set the table for Adam, and Adam's taken it to another level. But early on, David realized, I remember in 1981, I believe it was, I had just been hired, and we put together, excuse me, it was 1982. He put together the anti-drug agreement with the Players Association. Primarily, Bob Lanier and Junior Bridgman led the charge on this. Then he put in a collective bargaining agreement that made the players and management partners. They split the revenue, the first time in sports. The guy who was a labor writer for the New York Times said this is a revolutionary concept. All industries should look into it. And so effectively, he made everyone partners, which made everyone more invested in the game and helped everyone to grow it.
Gary?
Yeah, I'm just curious. There's so many things going on with the NBA. One of the things that I think stands out the most is opening these arenas so people can vote. That is huge. I know as someone who's already voted, I wanted to make sure that not only was my ballot received, but I went to make sure that it was counted. But because there's so much of there's an effort to suppress the vote, I believe, in so many areas that having these arenas open, big time.
Give you a little anecdote on it. We have 20 of the arenas being used as either voting registration, voter information, registering the voters, and serving as a polling place. Getting a lot of information out on how to kind of like look through the deception that's being out there in the, well, we all know it's fake media. We know the difference between fake and real. Anyways, they've set up the 20 of these arenas to do it. We were stymied in a few others, and we couldn't do it in a few others. I'm not sure the reasons why we couldn't, but I know two examples where they wanted to do it. One in Miami, and they thought they had a deal lined up, but the Republican county supervisor, I guess, who had final say, said, no, we're not going with the bigger American Airlines arena that the Heat has. We're going to go to this smaller place because we've used it in the past. Right. Mm-hmm. Then in Milwaukee, they thought they had a deal worked out, but there's a state law they put in by a state that's run by a Republican legislature, a Republican judiciary. And so they thought they had a deal, but they said, no, they had a deadline they had put in. You had to identify your voting spots back in June. Well, this is just part of a voter suppression campaign in that state. They could have made some changes like a couple of other states did in opening up other polling places. New York City just opened up 2 more yesterday, just for yesterday and today, because they realized they didn't have enough of them. So what the owners have done on this, and this really came out of the bubble with the players sitting down, what can we do? And taking this to the owners, and the owners came up. The players forced it, and the owners went with it. So there's some good action, and it's really an important thing. I read where they had something like 25,000 votes cast at Mavericks Reunion Arena the other day. Texas has had more votes cast already than they had in the entire 2016 election. This is opening up voting places in areas where they didn't have as many, and it's allowing people to come into a safe area to vote. Yes. Where it's spread out. Unlike normal voting locations where you stand in line, it's all pretty close. So it's just a great thing, and hopefully this is just a start of what the NBA can do.
Jackie?
You've got a bit of a ultimate insider's perspective, and I was wondering, what's the difference in the dynamic between the owners of NBA clubs and their players versus the NFL or Major League Baseball? Doesn't seem like there is as much antagonism or resistance to listening to the players in the NBA. What's the source of that?
I can't really speak for the NFL or baseball because I haven't been part of them. But for the NBA, I really hearken it back to David Stern in the early 80s when everyone became partners, when management and labor, the owners, what they're now trying to call themselves governors, and the players. It was kind of revolutionary, but they came together and there was a partnership that formed. And you can talk to the Isaiah Thomases, the Magic, the people who were around back in the 80s when that happened. Everyone became invested because they saw the benefits of working together. There was able to be communication. It started out, we've had our differences of opinion, and you know, unions and management are always going to have some clashes, but they've been able to at least communicate. And I give David Stern a lot of credit. I give Adam a lot of credit, but I give a lot of credit to our players who've been actively involved. Chris Paul, Bob Lanier, when he was president of the Players Association, was a magnificent leader. Junior Bridgman, who's going on to become an incredibly successful businessman, he was heavily involved in the agreement to have the anti-drug agreement and the new collective bargaining. So I really think that's the history. They've been working together now as partners economically for 40 years or close to it. So there's been a lot of communication, and anytime you can have communication, in my mind, you got a better chance of finding out what you got in common and how you can solve some problems. So I just think that's one of the reasons why we've been able to have a good rapport with our Players Association.
What about in terms of, you know, we talk a lot about economics, but also in the political climate? The WNBA players have been incredibly frontline, if you will, in terms of protesting social conditions and you know, police relations with the Black community. And of course, the NBA players, you know, the male players followed suit. But, you know, there's a level of tolerance, for lack of a better term, that you see in the NBA that you don't see in other sports. And is that solely the players? I mean, there must be some combination of things going on there that you don't see the same kind of animus between the owners and the players.
Like I said, I think part of it is we communicate together. Both sides have been communicating on economic and working conditions for 40 years, and not just, you know, as a labor management kind of condition. There's been talk about it. Now, you know, the owners are still pretty much the same. I read a recent article in the last couple of days that most owners of most teams, and this isn't a shock to me, are Republican, and they have contributed to Republicans. There was somebody on ESPN, I think, who tried to get in to show where they went. A lot of the owners, one guy was quoted saying, "I don't want to be quoted on where my money goes right now, so I don't attach my name to it." But a lot of them have gone on both sides, which isn't unusual for big businesses. You know, you got a big business, they're kind of watering the seeds on both sides of the aisle. You know, David Stern was very much a progressive. Adam Stern is too. I mean, Adam Silver. I think they helped set the tone with perhaps the Board of Governors. I know that David spoke with hiring practices more so than his mouth, back even as early as the mid 80s, right after he became commissioner. And while he could not mandate to teams to look to expand and diversify your workplace, he strongly encouraged it and put a lot of effort into showing them how to do things. So I think that that's been part of the culture. And the NBA is just, you know, we're a sport that is very heavily identified with the African-American community. And as a result, in a lot of parts of this society, we've taken a lot of lumps. so be it. That's who we are. The world has learned an awful lot through the NBA in terms of a lot of social things. Look at Magic Johnson and HIV. Before he came along, there were very few, there was so much misunderstanding of HIV positive people and AIDS. There was that little kid in Indiana, Ryan White or something. He basically almost had to live in a bubble. Well, when Magic became positive, there was such an educational campaign put out there that it changed people's minds. And I think a lot of things like that have gone through, or the NBA has been a part of it. It's who we are.
Maggie, are you out there, Maggie? Maggie Linton?
Yes, I'm here. I've loved everything you said. I think it's a little bit easier for NBA teams to do things than it is for NFL teams, just because of the number of personnel.
True.
You're talking about 13 to 15 people on a team as opposed to 70 or 80. So, the discussions go down quite a bit. But my question, being a Chiefs fan from Kansas City, there's talk about moving Toronto down to Kansas City. And I know you're not part of it, but you've got to hear something from somebody about thinking about that, because a lot of people don't realize that Kansas City did have NBA teams. The Bulls right now were formerly in Kansas City. It seems like teams have to leave Kansas City to become successful, but I would love to see some basketball, because they're already basketball crazy, mainly because of the Jayhawks.
Well, I'm a Bears fan, so I can brag from
my friends.
I can brag from the past. Not so much right now, even with the 5-1 record.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know what's going to happen with that. They've been talking again about Toronto, whether they're going to be allowed to come down. Kansas City's been mentioned, and there was another city. Louisville was also mentioned. Kansas City. It wasn't that when I came into the league in 1978. It was Kansas City, Omaha, for the Kings.
Right.
A good friend, Phil Johnson, who became assistant coach with Jerry Sloan all those years, was a head coach there, won Coach of the Year. Tiny Archibald played there. I mean, there's a nice little tradition. I don't know what's going to happen, and I don't know what's going to happen in the NHL if they don't allow Toronto to travel. The NHL is going to have a lot of problems with their teams up there. But with everything else going on this year, we've got to get the pandemic, and it's just. But people got to be smart about it.
Chris, are you there? Chris.
I had a question. I wanted to get your opinion on where you think the future of the college pipeline is going. As more and more kids in the next generation, I don't feel like they value college as much, even in society in general, but especially in terms of the pipeline and going to the NBA. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on how the G League process is evolving, and how that is. I see they're getting paid now and things like that, and how the NCAA is kind of falling out of favor with a lot of younger players, and your opinion on that situation?
It's interesting. The whole NCAA, AAU, quote, amateur basketball situation is undergoing some changes. And I think will continue to. It's, there's some people that I'm not sure have the athlete's best interests in mind. And there's a lot of people that do and don't have the voices. The G League offers people an honest alternative. I remember when we first started it up, a lot of us were kind of ticked off at David saying, oh, good, we've got the regular, we all signed on when we joined here, we had one men's pro league. Now we're adding a women's one. And now you want us to add a minor league team, and we're not increasing staff. Are you crazy? But obviously we embraced it. What the G League does, and it took a little while, it's now really kind of a minor league system. Before it, when it started out, it was loosely affiliated and no teams had real affiliation. Well, now we've got it, there's almost a 1-to-1 situation, and you have contracts where you can go up and down, therefore they can pay more. They put together this one team. I don't know all this about it. I've been retired now for 8 years, so I don't have all the details. But as you referred to, there's a super team they've put together that's going to, and they're paying them a little bit more. It gives players options. Not everyone, wants to go to college. And some of the, in my opinion, some of the programs, it's not college, it's just a glorified AAU program. So I think this gives them alternatives. There's a growing number of players who are going to have come into the G League out of college, and I think that'll continue to increase. Last couple of years, you saw some people going overseas. I'm not sure that's always the best. It can be great, but there's just not. This gives you, I think ours is more structured and has a more positive, we're looking out for the players a little bit more than professional leagues around the world. So I don't know what the future is going to hold, but I think that the G League is poised to become a real minor league. I mean, it's there right now. I think it's over 60% of the players in the NBA have played in the G League at one point or another. You can send them down now if a player isn't performing that well or not playing that much. You can send them down for a period of time so he can work on his game, which is what a real minor league should be about. So I think it's a great opportunity for a lot of players. I don't know what, NCAA is going to be around for a long time. I think they've got to clean up some of the stuff. Everyone has problems right now trying to figure out how they're going to continue to survive. I mean, with the pandemic and economically, how you keep everything afloat. And eventually people will come back, but it's just, there are people who are going to suffer. And I hope hopefully we can get this thing resolved quickly. And hopefully next Tuesday, it's one of our greatest days in U.S. history, hopefully.
Kimberly and John, are you there?
Hey, Brian. Hey, Harold. Thanks for having us. John and Kim Shackelford here, Brian. My question was more or less in the pay gap between WNBA players and NBA players. Of course, there was a recent article talking about it. I guess wanted to hear your insight on how does the NBA plan to sort of try to at least achieve closing that gap between the pay of the WNBA and the pay of the NBA?
It's a tough one. I mean, you've got to have some revenues coming in order to be able to pay the bills. When the WNBA first started out, it really was kind of the NBA supported it. All the teams were owned by WNBA or by NBA owners. That started to change, and now there's only a few of them that the NBA teams have a piece of, and it's owned by individual entrepreneurs. And I know the NBA is still supporting it, still throwing more money into it. There's a new commissioner who has gone out and is getting the sponsors. I think it was it Secret, where somebody just in the last week or so came in with $1 million program of sponsorship, where the money's going to the athletes as much as it's going to the teams. It's an uphill battle. They've got a better TV contract. I think they entered into it 2 years ago, where they're actually making money on this with ABC and ESPN, more games. But I think that Kathy Youngbrook has got the right idea to get the sponsors. When the NBA took off in the mid 80s, it was a combination of opening up TV channels, not just here, but across the globe. Satellite and cable were starting to play a major role. And then sports marketing came in, and it really, especially the shoe companies, poured all kinds of money into promoting shoes and athletes. And most of the athletes were NBA players. And all of a sudden, Madison Avenue, which for years says NBA players, no, we don't want you. We were too black for Madison Avenue. All of a sudden, now they're coming after us. They're throwing money at the players, putting them in commercials, and it took off. So the sports marketing boom, television together, just helped create an interest. And I think with the TV contract in place for the WNBA, Kathy actively recruiting and getting some sponsors who are putting more money into it and putting the players into commercials. I think that what the WNBA players like Sue Bird and I can't pronounce her name, the woman who's in charge of the Players Association, these players have taken a lead in creating their brand, and I think it's going to help to pay off. It's gotten better over the last several years. The pandemic has screwed everything up, but I think it's moving forward. It's a tough uphill battle.
First Lady Kimberly.
Your thoughts? What do you think is the best way to go about?
Well, I agree with you, and especially in terms of the marketing and being able to brand and position those young women with like your companies that would give them the sponsorships for the shoes or the endorsements for, you know, other athletic apparel, for example, Under Armour with their new technology in their shirts, being able to utilize those women for those particular marketing efforts may help boost some of that WNBA, that pay gap between what the athletes are getting paid on a WNBA level and on the NBA level. But you're right, it's probably going to be a unique transition because, of course, ticket sales have to go up too in order for that to take place. For example, in our area, we know that there was we're in the Washington, D.C. area. They just recently built a new stadium specifically for the WNBA, right. The Mystics. And so ticket sales have to go up. You know, I think the more and more ticket sales has to go up, but that also comes from what you just said, Brian, was marketing. You know, if they can get those endorsement deals with the Nike, with the Adidas, with the Reeboks or the Under Armours, then that to me would help position them a little differently in terms of how their ticket sales can sort of help increase. And then, of course, that'll become a little bit more popular as well. But you're right, it's definitely an uphill situation.
It's not just but it's not just the sporting goods companies either. It's what I think Kathy's going out after are other, you know, brands that may be just strictly women or maybe general, you know, from cereals to deodorants to women's products, and get them in their ads, get them more visible, get them out there. It's almost similar to the same resistance that there was for the black athlete, the black players in the NBA when they first came in. Now it's a matter of, I remember David Stern and myself, and we would have these annual meetings with the Associated Press sports editors, and David would hammer them about a lot of things, but always about the WNBA. Why don't you cover women's sports more? Why don't you do this more? And for years, they said, well, there's no interest. And now, this is a room full of 20 older white gentlemen who are saying, here's what's going to be covered. So that's changing and has changed. So we're getting more perspectives. Other people are saying, hey, look at this. So if we can get them in more ads, in more places, it's just going to continue to grow. It doesn't happen as fast as anyone wants it to happen, though. So anything anyone can do to help us along those lines, we're all ears.
Kimberly.
Hello, everyone. So yeah, just to piggyback, that was, I agree with everything, of course, my husband said. But I also think that there should be, I'm heavy on the marketing piece of that, because that is definitely key. But the marketing has to be unique because there's a different way to market to women that will pull us into something. If you go to the college level even and look at the games there, you have a basketball team, a men's basketball team in the arena is filled. It's fans, it's painted faces, it's all of that. You look at the same exact college and university and you look at the game where the women are playing, and it's a lot less. So I think if you start at that level and deal with marketing at that level and deal with that pipeline from college to a professional position as a basketball player, now you're reaching at the college level, you may be reaching little girls. You reach little girls, you reach the tweens, you've got the whole household. So I think marketing can even go there. So it would be great to see a WNBA player that happens to be in a commercial with a little girl playing with her Barbies, or, you know,
Precisely.
Yeah, or something like that, because now this little girl wants to go and see a Mystics game because she just saw on Disney Channel there was a commercial of a WNBA player. And so it has to be very unique, and it has to be very targeted toward things that women like. When you said women's products, that's very true. Things that people look at sports where women also participate, and they look at it as it's just how the society is. It's a man's sport and a woman is playing it. So
it's changing, I think, though. I think it's changing.
Yeah. Oh, it's definitely changing. It's definitely changing. But I think a big push is to show these players outside of basketball. Again, that is what appeals mostly, I'm being very general here, to women. So if I get to see this WNBA player who on the court has her hair pulled back in a ponytail, she has her tank top on, she has her sneakers, and if she's from this area, her socks pulled all the way up to her knees. I'm not from this area, and you see that, and she's balling out, but then you see her in a press conference or you see her in a commercial and she's glammed out. It's like, I remember seeing Lisa Leslie, and after seeing her not on the court, but in a commentator position, I'm like, wow, that's Lisa Leslie? She's like gorgeous, you know? And it's like, okay, I can relate as a woman. That's my thing. So I think that the marketing has to be very particular and specific. But again, it's a pipeline in terms of getting the interest at a very young age, following that through college, and then now in professional sports, and to show that it's not, okay, so I'm a female, of course, and I'm all into girl power and black girl magic and all that, but not just focusing on that aspect, to really focus on things that appeal to women. So it's a lot of marketing, but if you start at that college level, and again, get those tweens, but if you start at that college level, it's really, really going to make an impact. You'll start to pay attention to a WNBA draft like you do.
I think the colleges have to do more themselves to promote theirs for years. I mean, Loyola U grad, when I was there, we had some decent teams, but there wasn't even a women's team. They didn't start that until the 80s. It blows me away. I remember when my sister, I have two sisters, the older of the 2 years younger than me. In grammar school and high school, she wanted to play basketball. And I remember her coming home one day. I can't remember. It had to be grammar school. She was livid. She's throwing stuff around the house. She says, "What is this? You guys get to play real basketball. We have to play 6 of us on the court. 3 of us could be in the front, 3 of us in the back. We got to wear these stupid dresses." I'm going, whoa. I said, that didn't make any sense at all, you know? So I've kind of been on that side of the fight. I mean, I've been aware of it for a long time. So college, I think, has to do a lot. It's almost like with the exception of the top 10, 20 programs where they get some good stuff. But I'm talking grassroots. Most of the schools, you don't draw much at all. It's like my daughter played pretty competitively in high school, and we'd get crowds, but it's mostly parents.
Yeah, that was going to lead me to my next question, Brian.
Well, we don't have time for that. We got to get out of here. We got to let Brian go. Brian has stayed over his time. We said 15 minutes. But Brian, I want to say thank you so much for taking time out. But Brian, I was just thinking, when we met, what was your first NBA All-Star game? What do you remember where that game was played?
The first one I was at, I went to a couple of them when I was with the Bulls, but the first one I was in charge of running for the NBA was 1982 in New Jersey.
Okay, we met in Houston. Now, I don't know what year that was.
So that was probably 87, 88, 86, 87, something like that.
Yeah, because I remember you were in the press room by yourself with Sonny Hill, and I came in. Tell us how we met. Tell them that story how we met, Brian.
Well, you have your version, and mine's slightly different, Harold. But basically, Harold, I think I'd known Sonny. I'd met him because I had Sonny because Philadelphia had been in the finals for a couple of years when I first started up. And long story short, not in those days, communications, getting credential applications and everything out was very, very kind of risky at best. It didn't work real well. Anyways, Harold shows up. We have no record of his.
Oh, there we go. There we go. Freeze on that.
Well, I guess that's an unsolved mystery now about how you met.
Anyway, I want to thank Brian for taking time out, man, to be here and spend more time than I thought we would have to. But anyway, Brian and I met at a Houston NBA All-Star game. I came in with Sonny Hill. Sonny came in and got his credentials. I went to Brian for credentials, and he said he didn't have any record of my credentials. So I said, what? I said, you think I come all the way out here to Houston, Texas from Washington, D.C. and not send in credentials? So he sat there for a minute and Sonny Hill disappeared on me. I go, well, Sonny Hill gone. So I'm sitting there with just me and Brian. So Brian is, he's doing his paperwork, not saying anything. So I suddenly say, Brian, do you know Red Auerbach? He said, yeah, I know Red Auerbach. You know him? I said, yes. So I said, can I call him? So he gave me the phone. So I called Red, and Dottie, his wife, answered the phone. I said, Dottie, this is Harold. She said, how you doing? What's happening? I said, I'm in Houston, Texas for the NBA All-Star game, and I can't get credentials, and I want Red to talk to Brian here. He said, well, Red's gone out to the country club, Harold. He's out there playing tennis or gin rummy or whatever. She said, give Mr. McIntyre the phone. So I gave the phone to Mr. McIntyre. And when he heard Dottie Auerbach say, hey, give Harold credentials, it was a brand new day. That's how Mr. Mack and I met, because of Red Auerbach and me having his telephone number. Otherwise, I might not have ever got into the game, because I went up to the room and Sonny Hill was just sitting there and said, how you make out? I would look at him like he was crazy. But anyway, guys, that was great. That was some great dialogue. And I wanna move on now, because we got a very important voting coming up on Tuesday. This is our last program before the voting. And I wanna read you something, a letter that I received in 1997, July 5th, from the Congress of the United States of America, House of Representatives. It said, dear Mr. Bell, Congressman Lou Stokes and I are pleased that you will be able to join us on Monday, July 25th, for the first meeting of the Congressional Black Caucus Brain Trust Communications. The meeting will be held in room 2316 in the Rayburn Office Building, which is located on the corner of South Capitol Streets and Independence Avenue Southeast. The session will formally convene at 10 a.m. However, we ask that you arrive at 9:30 a.m. for registration and refreshments. Lunch will be served at 12 noon in the Rayburn room B309. If you have not already sent in your check for $6.95, please do so immediately. Again, thank you for your participation. Congressman Stokes and I are looking forward to a dynamic session. Sincerely, Congressman William Clay. Now, I say all that to say, I'm giving my age, 1977, but I got involved in politics early, just not from going to the Nixon White House to Republican president, which I did not know the difference between a Democrat and a Republican, but I went there because I was a friend of the vice president. I used to caddy for him. I had an opportunity, and I was not going to not go. And I'm saying that all to say that we now have Kanye West, Cardi B, 50 Cent, rapper Ice Cube. All of these guys have been in the news lately about meeting with President Trump. So I'm saying, what is going on here that suddenly rappers have become the spokesman for Black folks? Are they really? My man Ice Cube came up with a contract for Black America that he first carried to the Biden campaign. Then they said they couldn't talk to him till after the election was over, so he carried it to Trump. And when he carried it to Trump, all hell broke loose, because he went to meet with Trump's people, not at the White House, not meeting with Trump, but just with Trump's people. And everybody just went ballistic. So what is happening here? When we look now at, we're trying to find our way to tell us how important this vote is, and all of a sudden we got rappers out front talking, leading the way. Gary?
I'm curious. We've got somebody else on that hasn't had a chance to speak. Do you see him? Perry Red?
Perry Red is there?
Yeah.
Perry?
Hello, Harold, and hello all. Thank you, Gary.
Yes.
Perry?
If I may, allow me to speak to you.
Okay, go ahead.
It's relevant. Hello, folks. I'm Perry Red. I'm a candidate for the Ward 4 seat on our highest legislative body here in the District of Columbia. We're the entity who has more residents than 2 states in the union. We contribute to this country more revenue than 21 states in the union. We have the same culture of celebrity, which speaks to our value system, allows rappers, people who tell the story culturally, basically with the music, which I'm a singer-songwriter. I'm an ASCAP licensed songwriter. I've been writing for 40 years. And, I only wish I could have the stature of Ice Cube. But I've written songs as volatile as an Ice Cube or songs as sexy as any one of those artists. But let me just say, it speaks to our value system that we would hold these entertainers to the same political esteem as a duly elected senator, say a Kamala Harris or a Cory Booker. And that's problematic for us. But it's about visibility. And if indeed someone with visibility like that can get into the space of the decision makers, and this is one of the reasons why this election is abnormal, but it is as important as any episode in American history. And I'm not going to begrudge the rappers making statements on behalf of Black America, but it speaks to our leadership in this country. Who is it you will give audience to? Because when the community activists go to them, the door is shut. When even those who are elected to local legislators go to them, the door is shut. When those of other parties, including yours truly, go to them, the door is shut. And so it takes, unfortunately, an entertainer. And if we look back into history, we remember Harry Belafonte stepping in on behalf of Black America. We remember other entertainers, Harold Bell, your friend, the great Muhammad Ali, stepping in to make our case to those who will legislate the laws that will govern our lives. It's just so very important that somebody do the task. I'm grieved that it had to be, rappers. But I'm not fully discouraged as some may be. But it's alarming to me that Ice Cube would reveal, and I'm glad he did, don't get me wrong, but it's alarming to me. They revealed they went to the Biden administration the Biden team, and said, we'll talk to you after the election. Our lives are important every day. Our lives matter every day. Right now, I'm advocating for a young man who was killed at the hands of police right here in the district. And his family can't get an audience with the ones who are responsible, the ones who are accountable. All they're asking for are facts and transparency. And we've been in this fight. You may have seen it on the national news that our community, our organic community, had to disrupt the wheels of the machine, the economic interest, in order for the responsible parties, the accountable parties, if not responsible, the accountable party, to even give them an audience. So, yeah, it does speak to our value system. It also speaks to our BS, our belief system, my wife calls it. And our BS might be in question here, but it's part of a fuller context. But thank you for bringing that up, Aaron.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
Can
Gary?
I say something? Can I say something? It's
Yeah.
Maggie. Okay. I do have a problem with him going to Trump and revealing it like 2 to 3 weeks before the election. If the Biden team told you, I'm not elected yet, if anything else, that would give me the motivation to make sure that they are elected. I'm not following a rapper anywhere, okay? So you tell me that Trump's been in there for 3 years, 1,000 and some days, and 2 weeks before the election, you're going to reveal that you went to talk to him and the Biden team didn't talk to you? Well, there's only so much somebody can do when they're not the one in charge. where they're the one in charge. People are dying from COVID-19. Millions of people are out of work. And you're going to tell me all of a sudden you got a solution? Wait 2 weeks. Wait 3 weeks. You've waited this long through the whole, hopefully only one Trump administration. And then all of a sudden you're going to disparage everybody else? That's what I'm pissed about. Don't show me a picture with the orange Cheeto. I don't need to see it. Okay?
Yeah.
That's the way I feel. I don't need to hear some rappers got all the answers all of a sudden. And he couldn't wait 3 weeks? Nah.
Well, Ms. Linton, I agree with many elements of what you said. I ain't found the rapper nowhere. But at the same time, I'll say this, that this isn't the first rodeo for Ice Cube. And he was presented to them years ago. And we do now know that the Democrats chose Joe Biden as their representative to oppose and compete against Trump. And so the revelation did come out recently. It was over a month ago, but it is revealing to us that you're right, that the Biden campaign said, well, we ain't president yet. We haven't been elected yet. But we also know that if indeed they would have opened the door, then it would have given Black America every opportunity to say it is unequivocal. When you talk about undecided voters, that ain't us. And we need to be telling folks, that ain't us. You know, I'm not of either party, but I am of a party. And so I've made a commitment to my values, to my value system. And it is imperative for folks to know that ain't us. And you know, I'm grieved about and have been for years, about the Democrats' triangulation at times, and at crucial times. And this is probably one of the most crucial times of my life. The last 3.5 years have been an absolute nightmare. But as a pseudo journalist and even as a songwriter and as a political actor and a community organizer, I've never ran out of reasons for my work. The Trump administration never gave me a day of rest. And it's like fighting Satan over here and then having to put my knuckles up to fight the devil over there. And, you know, it's going to take all of us to do it, including rappers. But rappers shouldn't be the ones that had to lead on this. And I'm not saying that they are leading on it, because there are others who are out there fighting for it, like my friend, the great Harold Bailey. You know, he fights on a different, in a different venue, on a different stage. And I admit I'm exhausted by the Trump administration. And
okay, guys, we give everyone out of time here. We got about
Yes,
10 minutes left. We'll
Yes,
kind of go around the horn here and get a minute from each person. Gary, let's start with you, Gary. Gary.
Well, I just find it interesting, and seems like with Black America, people always think, you know, who's your Black leader?
Mm-hmm.
Who, you know, we're always asking Black folks who's their leader. I never hear that question asked to white folks in terms of who their leader is. We're not a monolithic group, so I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
We can, and also I will be with Maggie. I ain't following no rapper. No.
Okay, Jackie Jones.
Well, I would say what I always say, do your homework. If you have studied Donald Trump's behavior, how he has treated people, how he has claimed good ideas as his own, how he discards and disregards people, you know, his saying, I had a conversation with somebody means nothing. And you can even sit down and think you have a deal with him and you got nothing. And that's where I have an issue with the rappers thinking that they're having a real conversation with this dude.
Right.
Just know, you know, that and $5 will get you a cup of coffee at Starbucks. It's about if it's worth that. And so, you know, and I think that we also have to pay attention to what's going on locally and hold our local officials accountable and pay attention for what's going on down ballot, as well as what's happening at the top of the ticket. And even the issues where our elected officials are in positions where they are responsible for appointing people and making decisions, like in Prince George's County, where we're waiting to find out what's going on with the effort to get a new police chief there. There's been awfully quiet from Ms. Also Brooks' office. I want to know where that stands.
We're looking into it, Jackie. We're on top of it. Hey, Chris, are you there, Chris?
Yeah, I'm here. I kind of fall in between on this issue. I agree that rappers aren't our thought leaders as Black America. We're not a monolithic group, but I have to respectfully disagree with Maggie in terms of I'm not as mad as Ice Cube as I am at Joe Biden's staff. I understand he's not elected, but at the same time, it's just a strategic mistake to you could have just took the meeting. It's not like I don't believe Trump has anything for Black America. I don't think he's using these rappers for anything other than a photo op. But just from the Biden campaign, if Biden losing this election, it's on him, just like it's on Hillary. It's not because of Russia. It's not because of this. It's because Biden didn't run a very strong campaign. Just strategically, agree or not, it would have maybe been smarter to take the meeting, even if it's nothing, it doesn't amount to anything. Even if taking the meeting is just telling him, hey, we can't really do anything until we get in office. Maybe you should help us campaign and get in office, like you suggested before. But just not taking the meeting, and that gives him the ammunition, and the Republicans can spin it, and then we get the whole mess. So I just still think Joe Biden is running an incredibly weak and vulnerable campaign at a time where it's too important for us to risk another 4 years of Trump. I am also exhausted by Donald Trump.
CJ, have you voted?
I have voted.
Okay, just wanted to know.
All right, John.
Nowadays.
John, Kimberly.
So I'm a little kind of like CJ. I kind of see both sides of the spectrum because I kind of understand both sides. I understand the Republican views and I understand the Democratic views. And yes, I did vote, Miss Maggie, by the way. We early voted. But I kind of agree with both of you guys. I think it does make sense for Trump, from his perspective, to say, hey, look, okay, we understand that Blacks do have to be at least identified in some way with our campaign. How do we do that? And again, there's also been polls that show that Black men, quite a Black men are moving in the direction towards voting or at least Republican-based views of voting for Donald Trump. So I can understand that as too. And then there is isolation, especially with Joe Biden's history of what he's done for quote unquote Black America, why I think some African Americans have sort of been a little undecisive. You're right, CJ. I totally agree with CJ in that. Sure, Donald Trump, maybe not. At the same time, we understand that Biden, yes, has to be held accountable at some point if he is elected to the office, so that he can know that, hey, we do need to make this. You have to be held accountable for what we need as Black America.
It's also important to note that when Ice Cube came out with this earlier in the late spring or summer. He came out with his CBA, but people jumped on him for his tactics. I did too. But then again, let's look at what he's doing. He's asking for what he wants from elected politicians. And people are like, oh my gosh, why is he because he's asking for what he wants. We demand. We are a huge part of the population. We are a huge part of the economics of this country. So he's asking for what he wants. And to what Gary said, Gary, I'm a both sides type of person. And when it comes to Black leaders, it makes me cringe every time they talk about where the Black leaders. We need our Black, we say it. We need our Black leaders. And then someone says, well, who's speaking for the Black community? It happens to be the history of our culture in this country. We've always had to have someone to speak for us because we could not speak for ourselves, whether it's because we didn't know the language or it's because we had no power during the times when we were enslaved. But it also goes back to our culture as Africans that we always had a leader. And so I understand both dynamics, but I'm with you, Gary. It makes me cringe when I hear, well, we need leaders. No, you be the leader. You do something. But in terms of Ice Cube, Kanye West, whoever, whatever, I won't say out. and Lil Wayne, I won't say I'll follow a rapper. I'm following ideals and ideas and morality and for my faith, what I believe. But if you're saying something that needs to be said and we can't discount their voices and what they're saying, then I'm gonna listen. I'm at least listen, Biden, listen.
Okay, Perry, you were the last one to come in. You got 1 minute, Perry, before we get out of here. Perry?
Well, thank you, Harold. And yeah, you got to limit me, man, because I get long-winded. Steelers just scored, by the way, folks. Listen, you know what? This is one of the greatest exposés in the different views of the same issue, and this is who we are as a people. As I listen to CJ and Miss Linton, and I listen to all of you, and Ms. Jones, this makes complete sense that we all are going toward the same direction, and we all believe that we all are the answer, and that means rappers as well as those intellectuals. And for me, it's all about inclusion of all of our voices to demand what it is that we want. So I'm looking forward to Tuesday. Again, I don't have a snowball's chance of winning, but participating in a democracy means that your ideals may win the war of ideals, and that's what's important.
Okay, fantastic, guys. Let me say this going out. Sometimes I have to ask myself, why has it taken us so long to come to the table? I mean, in 1972, before NWA and Ice Cube, Harold Bell was on Inside Sports. They had to go underground. I called out the same thing on Inside Sports while they went underground. They became famous. I was out there. So my thing, when I look around and I listen to Dr. Claude Anderson the other day, he made so much sense. He said, man, do you realize that in 1948, we had only 2 Black federal judges? And he was with Carter, the Carter administration. So he was in a position when Strom Thurmond called him and said, look, Mr. Anderson, I need some bulldozers and I need this and that. And Claude Anderson was in a position to give him those things. He gave him those things, but you know what he said? Mr. Thurmond, you owe me now. You owe me. I need 3 judges. And Al Hastings was one of those judges. And Strom Thurmond gave him 3 judges. You hear what I'm saying? So what has the Congressional Black Caucus been doing all of this time? You understand what I'm saying? Donald Trump has put over 200 federal judges in office. And where is the final decision made for Black folks when it comes to us getting our human and civil rights? Is made at the Supreme Court. They got the final answer. Now he done got another woman on the Supreme Court. So where are we going? The rappers can't carry us there. So man, I just want to say, man, look, everybody stay in the struggle, man, because we got these spooks that's set by the door that's holding us back. It's not just Donald Trump. Don't put all the blame on Donald Trump. We need to put some of this blame on ourselves. Hey, Gary, Maggie, Jackie, Chris, Kimberly, John, and of course, Perry Red, man, thanks so much, man. I wish we had more time, man, because we could go on and on, but you guys have done a great job. And until next Sunday, I'm Harold Bell, and you can color me gone. Check us out.
Stay safe. That's it.